Hey, what's going on? This is Justin here, back with another creator commentary, and this time I'm going to be talking about the covers to the new WonderCare story, If You Give a Kid a Comic. So the entire project is a nod to the classic children's story, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, which was written by Laura Numeroff and illustrated by Felicia Bond. So everything about this project has the creative bones of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. And so with the covers, we try to mimic the exact same sort of aesthetic. And let me throw up the original cover here. So mimicking the same kind of vibe with the giant paper in the background and the art supplies, I wanted to do something similar. I never actually read this book before. It wasn't in rotation during my childhood. So I went ahead and picked up a copy of this book and gave it a read. And inside the actual aesthetic of the book is spot illustrations. And all the spot illustrations have a very textured look to it because it was obviously done with some sort of colored pencil and something that gives off a really rough texture. And so it wasn't until after I finished this cover that I decided to replicate that kind of texture and traditional look. And so for the cover, it's drawn and colored more in the traditional style of the WonderCare comic. But then when you're looking inside, the images look a little more handcrafted, even though I replicate the colored pencil digitally. Like the What Matters WonderCare story that we did during COVID, this was another quick turnaround. Victor pitched me the idea. He said, hey, I wrote this WonderCare story using If You Give a Mouse a Cookie as a template, and it's really an autobiographical piece for Victor about how comics really pushed his aspirations and made him read more. And I guess he had a really great experience at San Diego Comic-Con that a light bulb went in his head that he should turn this into a WonderCare story. And then as soon as he texted me that, I told him I was in. I read his draft, and then I think a day or two later, I got the copy of the book, I read it, and then I drew up this cover. And it was super, super quick because I had everything there. I had the groundwork there, the baseline, and deciding on what character to put on the cover, I decided on Sun Moon. And the reason being, I told Victor, is that this character in our series, she has a difficult time expressing herself. So what if the idea of their teacher, Miss Terry, giving her a comic sort of opens her up and inspires her to be more communicative with her teammates and her friends. He really liked the idea, and he went ahead and lettered the titles in, and that became the cover for If You Give a Kid a Comic. And then the back cover was just as easy. Although I didn't build the original file as a spread, so I'm basically guessing, and I'm hoping Victor can line up the paper to match the front. And about halfway through the thumbnail process and reading over Victor's draft and taking notes of my own, I realized something in the story where the perspective would shift to another character who has difficulty communicating with his teammates or maybe expressing himself too much or a little more aggressive, and that was Cub. So then in my thinking, I was in the story, I was like, oh, what if Sun Moon is the character that receives the comic and she reads it and she's inspired by wanting to share her love of comics with her friends? And so they go to the comic shop, they pick out books, and then what if it's Cub who's the one that's inspired because Sun showed Cub what a comic book was and he really enjoyed it? And what if he was the one who was inspired to make his own comic? And so the story kind of shifts from one perspective to two, and they ultimately become closer as friends because they share this thing in common that they love. And so for the back cover, I decided to put Cub on the back, and he's holding a comic book that maybe he invented or he created because of the comic that was given to Sun on the front cover. So that was my thought process in working with these covers, and I really hope you enjoy it, and I hope you like this book when it comes out. And thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next.